Hey there, it's Shauna. I hope you're doing great. This is your weekly astrology forecast for August 28th. And this week is all about passionate self-expression because this week you'll have opportunities to express yourself in a bold and passionate and maybe even a creative way. So this week is very dynamic and there are lots of opportunities to express, and it may feel a little bit intense. I know we've already had weeks and weeks of intensity, but this will be a little bit different. This week you'll actually have opportunities to move forward with things, with insights that you've had over the past few weeks, and things will start to become more clear as well. So I'll share the astrology of the week with you, and then I have 3 tips for you to have an amazing week. So the first aspect that's happening is the first quarter square of the moon in the sign of Sagittarius. And so the first quarter square of the moon is the phase when the moon is waxing, it's growing larger in the sky, and it's the time following, it's like the midpoint between the new moon and the full moon. So we're moving from the new moon, which is about beginnings. We had our new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Leo. And then we're moving toward the full moon in Pisces next week. So the first quarter square, it's when we're trying to break through resistance towards doing something. And often this is in the material world. Often this is about taking action. It's about meeting a challenge or coming up against some kind of resistance. It could be, again, it could be external or internal, but oftentimes this is a call to action when there's the first quarter square of the moon. And this is in the sign of Sagittarius, which is about truth and vision, and it's about having faith in the process. So I want you to keep that in mind. All of that really to say that this is a time to move forward. This is a time to take emotional risks, to do what it is that you need to do. So this is happening earlier in the week. It's happening at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, Tuesday, August 29th at 1:13 a.m. Pacific time, or which is also 8:13 a.m. Universal Time, and then 6:13 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. So I would really watch out for how you're feeling around Monday and Tuesday this week. Again, it's a time to move forward. It's a time to jump with both feet forward. The other aspect that's happening this week is we have Mercury and Mars coming together with Uranus. And so Mercury is still retrograde. And there's this really interesting dynamic between Mercury, which is our mind, our thoughts, our communication, being tied in with the solar eclipse in Leo that we had last week. And so even though the solar eclipse is over, we're still within that season. And that eclipse point that we had last week is actually going to be activated this week by Mercury and Mars. And so this is a time where you may feel like taking action, which is what Mars is about. And there may be an opportunity for you to align your mind with your actions to get clarity, which is Mercury, on what it is that you want, which is Mars, and where it is that you're going, what it is that you want to do about it. So again, we're in the waxing cycle, we are in forward movement energy, but I would just watch your level of commitment to new projects, new purchases, and of course anything that are like leases and mortgages and things like that. Anytime that you're signing a contract, it's always good to be really mindful while Mercury is retrograde, which it is until September 5th. So again, it's kind of like this weird energy where there's a forward moving action, but I would just be careful with committing to new things. And if you want more resources on that, I wrote an article about Mercury through the zodiac for each rising sign. And then of course, me and Mel of Energetic Principles, we go into this a lot more in detail on the Feminine Principle podcast, Astrology for Authentic Living. So all of that being said, I have some tips for you for this week. So the first tip number 1, is to practice intelligent action. And what I mean by that is I do want you to act. This is a week of action, but what I want you to watch for is that it's coming from a place of response versus from reaction. And the difference between that is really about giving yourself some space before the action. So I want you to think about, before you move into something, what's the motivation for what you're doing? Are you coming from a place of groundedness? Are you coming from a place of peace and clarity? Or are you just trying to do something to do something? Are you just restless? And that's the downside of this energy, is acting from being restless and then making reckless kind of decisions. So that's tip number 1, to practice intelligent action. Tip number 2 will actually help you with this. Tip number 2 is to do alternate nostril breathing this week. It's great if you do it every day, but maybe every other day. I actually made a video about this a really long time ago, a tutorial on it. Alternate nostril breathing is just breathing in and out through one nostril at a time. You breathe in and out, or you breathe out and in, and then switch, and so etc. Clearly I can't demonstrate it right now while I'm talking, but I'll link below to that video that I made, and then you can just Google it on YouTube, alternate nostril breathing. And it's really great because it balances out both sides of your brain, and it's both calming and focusing and energizing at the same time. So I'm recommending this particular technique for this week because we have Mercury connecting with Uranus. And when these two come together, Mercury is the mind, Uranus is electric kind of insights. It's like the lightning bolt ideas. And sometimes it can create a sense of anxiety because it is like an exciting kind of energy. And I don't know, maybe you've experienced this where you're doing things and you're really active and you're like talking to people and working on projects, and then you find yourself kind of getting into like a burnout mode, like your nervous system, or maybe you drink a ton of coffee. That's kind of what it's like. So this week I want you to be proactive with this. I want you to do alternate nostril breath, or again, anything that is soothing for your nervous system. That's really what we're going for this week. So that's tip number 2, is to do some alternate nostril breathing. And then tip number 3 is to put this into action. So to put this into practice. So leave me a comment below and let me know what it is that you're doing this week to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and emotionally. So leave me a comment below, let me know what you're doing, and that way we can all learn from each other, because maybe there's something that you do that someone else would benefit from. So those are your tips for the week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it with a friend. And like I mentioned before, if you want to go more into these topics, especially all of the details with the Mercury and the Mars and the Uranus, and you want to get some more specific examples and how this could actually play out in much more detail than I can provide here, you can listen to the podcast that I co-host with my friend Mel of Energetic Principles. The podcast is called The Feminine Principle: Astrology for Authentic Living, and I'll have a link down below to the iTunes link for that. And then of course you can always book a reading with me if that is something that you're interested in, and that would be for you if you want to look specifically at your birth chart and you want to work out how to move forward in your life or to make certain decisions given these planets in relation to you at a more personal level. So that's all for today. I hope that you have an amazing day and an amazing week, and I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.